Dear Cricut, come out with the new knife blade. Signed, Delonda. Hello everyone and welcome to Crafting with Delonda. It's me again, Delonda, and thank you so much for joining me today. You guys, let me just tell you, this is what we're making and it took 2 days. We started, I was wearing a different shirt. You'll notice that in the video. By the end, I've already changed clothes. We're at the end, but I'm doing the intro at the end instead of at the beginning because that's just how rough it was. No pun intended. Okay, we are going to get through this. I had to use my Cricut Maker and the Cricut knife blade. Cricut Maker, Cricut knife blade. You cannot do this with a Cricut Explorer Air or a Cricut Explorer Air 3. But the struggle for this project was real. Look at the dog's head. Nobody needs a dog with a head like that. Anyway, we are going to get into the full tutorial. I am going to do what I always do. I'm going to take you through the project step by step. Now, once we get to the part where I'm painting and adding Mod Podge and all of that, that part of this tutorial is optional because the goal of this tutorial is to teach you how to cut basswood with your Cricut Maker. At the end of this video, if you find it helpful, please consider liking the video, subscribing to my channel, and turning on the bell for notifications because I do upload new content every single week. Now, without further ado, let's get started. The materials I use for this project include, I used several strong grip Cricut mats. I used a 4-pack of Cricut basswood. The size is 12 by 6. I used blue painter's tape, my spatula to check my cuts. I also used the Cricut True Control knife. I used multiple paint brushes to apply the paint and the glue. You will need some kind of glue to adhere the wood together. This is wood glue. I purchased this first, but E6000 works a lot better for me than the wood glue. I use Mod Podge to seal the top coat and make it a little more shiny. I used Starcraft chalk and mineral paint that I purchased from 143 Vinyl. And I also used this white matte acrylic paint that I think I purchased this from either Amazon or Joann Fabrics. You will need your Cricut Maker for this project. You cannot do this from a Cricut Explorer Air or a Cricut Explorer Air 3 because you will definitely need to use the knife blade. I ended up actually having to go purchase a second knife blade during this process because my first blade was not sharp enough. Okay, so without further ado, let's head on over to Cricut Design Space. The first thing I'm going to do is go to a website that is called dafont.com. Dafont.com is probably a very familiar place to find and download fonts that are free for personal use. There are some that are also free for commercial use, but you have to look at each specific font and kind of decide how you are planning to use it. I am going to go to this website and I'm going to find a font that will be appropriate to use with young learners who are learning how to identify letters of the alphabet and who are learning how to put letters together to form words. So if you look at the top right here, there is a menu and you have the fonts that are categorized. So there are fancy fonts and foreign look, techno, gothic, basic, script. So there are lots of ways to look through the fonts. You can also do a search by in alphabetical order. I am going to look in this category right here that's called script, and I'm going to look at the option for school fonts. Now, when I'm looking through these options, I am only going to be interested in finding a font that I could use or that will be appropriate to use with young learners. Because I am not considering making any sales of the project that I'm making, it is okay for me to find a font that I can use for personal use. Now, you can also look for fonts that are free for commercial use, but in this instance, I'm only going to be looking for one for personal use. Because I'm using these letters, I intend to use the letters for young learners. I'm also going to be very careful about finding a font that doesn't have any squiggly lines, that are not in cursive, that are not italicized, or that don't have anything fancy attached to them. Okay, so like I would not use this one right here called Bimbo or Gaston. I also wouldn't use this one called Teacher Student, because I can look at this one and see that it has like some rough edges, and I don't want to do anything that might be confusing to a young learner. Okay, so I wouldn't use this one right here. The first one that I saw in this list actually stood out to me, and I don't already have it downloaded. So what I'm going to do right here is click download. I can see that this font is free for personal use, which means I should not be making any sales with this. And I can see that this font is quite popular. It was downloaded just yesterday 975 times. Okay, so I am going to click download, and I can see that my computer is scanning this file to make sure that it's safe. And there used to be a time when I would click download and the download option would be at the bottom left corner of my screen, but now I can see right here there's a box at the top right. So I'm going to click that, and I can see that the option to download this font is right here, Letters for Learners. I can see that this font has 7 different options. I'm going to click Extract All. I am going to select Browse. I'm going to go to my Documents folder, and I already have a folder that's called Default Fonts. So I'm going to double click that folder, and I am going to create a new folder that is called Letters for Learners. Okay, I'm going to make sure that folder is selected. I'm going to click select folder, and then I am going to extract it. Okay, so now once the files are extracted, I can see that now I have the option to install them. So not only do you have to click download, you also have to extract them. Then you also have to install them, because just because they're extracted, that doesn't mean they're available on my computer just yet. So one way to do it is to make a decision. I can look through all of these and see, do I want all of them? Do I just want a portion of them? So I want this one that's called Letters for Learners. So I can double click on this, and I can click install. Okay, it says it's already installed. Do you want to replace it? I'm going to say yes, because I know I did not already install this. Okay, let's see, let's let it go through what it's going through and see Letters for Learners outline. I definitely know I didn't install that either, but I actually don't want that one, so I'm not going to click that one. Just want to see what they look like. This is a lighter version. I also don't want that one. Let's see the bold outline. I don't want that. So this is where you can make a decision on whether or not you like it. So this one is the same font, but it has the lines behind it. So if you're teaching a student how to, write on the lines or how to use the lines, this is when you might want to install this version of the Letters for Learners font. I'm not going to install that one. I don't want that one. This one is the dot, so if you want to teach them, to trace over the letters, you can also do that. I actually just want the regular basic Letters for Learners, and I'm good with that. So now I'm going to close all of this out, and now I am going to go over to another website that I want to show you. Is called Wordmarkit. The first thing you saw me do was go to dafont.com. Now I'm going to go to a website that is called Wordmarkit. And what I'm going to do is type in the word dog, and I'm going to keep my text all lowercase. I'm going to just D-O-G, and I'm going to hit enter. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to look at all of the font options that I have installed on my computer. Everything that is in Wordmark.it are the fonts that are already downloaded on your computer. These are what are considered as system fonts. So when you are working in Cricut Design Space and you're wondering what are system fonts, it is your font that can be seen by going to this site, wordmark.it. So I'm going to look at these options, and even though I've already downloaded one, I can still look at these to see what options I have and if I like any of these. Now, you will see ads playing when you're on this website. You can just, disregard them and just let them play and don't worry about it. Because I know I will be using this with young learners, I'm still going to be very careful to, weed out fonts that are all in uppercase letters. I would not use this one right here called Britannic because of the way that G is formed. When I'm teaching, or when you're teaching students how to identify letters, we want to use the most basic form of the letters that we have at our disposal. So I wouldn't use Cherry Blossom, but I might use like Cascadia. I like that one. Okay, I wouldn't use any of these. So I'm just going to be going through these and just making sure that the one that I downloaded is the absolute one I want to use. Okay, so that one that I downloaded was called Letters for Learners, and that was this one right here. So I'm looking. Okay, this is Microsoft font. I like that one. A lot of these Microsoft fonts are really good. This one is MS Reference. So I can just kind of scroll through and look really quickly to see if I see any that really stick out to me or really speak to me. Okay, so I can just make a selection of a few, and then I can click right here where it says filter selected fonts. I'm going to click on that, and then I can look at these and make a decision on, do I like any of these, or do I want to change and not use Letters for Learners, or do I want to use it? Is it going to work for me? So I think I like this one, this Cascadia Mono. I like that one a lot because I like the fact that it's bold. MS Reference, I like that one too. This was the original one that I downloaded, but I also like that. I think I'm going to stick with the one that I downloaded that was called Letters for Learners. So I'm going to close this out, and now I am ready to go into Cricut Design Space. I am in Cricut Design Space, and I am connected to the Cricut Maker. The first thing I'm going to remind you of is the importance of the Layers panel. We will rely on the Layers panel during the making of this project. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go over here to the left to the Shapes option, and I am going to select a rectangle. And I am going to unlock it right here at the top, and I'm going to change the width to 10.5. and I'm going to change the height to 5.5. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is duplicate this. So now if we're paying attention to what's going on in the Layers panel, you will see that I have 2 rectangles on my canvas, and I have 2 rectangles in the Layers panel. The Layers panel lets you know everything that you have going on your canvas. Okay, so I am just going to move one of my rectangles over here to the right, and I'm going to take this other rectangle, and I am going to change the color of it. I'm going to select right here where the operation type, where it says basic cut, right next to that, and I'm going to select the brown option, and I'm going to click the plus, and I'm going to change the color of this template to a color that more closely aligns with the color of the basswood that I'm using. Okay, so still looking at the Layers panel, I have one black or gray rectangle, and I have one that represents the top layer of the basswood. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is select a text box, and I can see it right here. And if you want to keep the Cricut Sans just the regular basic font, you're more than welcome to do that. However, I am going to use the font that I downloaded from dafont.com. So what I'm going to do is I am going to type dog in all lowercase letters, okay? And then I'm just going to take it and just move it over here to the right. So looking at my layers panel, I can see three things. I can see the word and text, and I can see that I have two rectangles. What I'm going to do is go over here to the font selection. I'm going to go to my system fonts, because remember, any font that you download or fonts that are already downloaded on your computer are called system fonts. I'm going to do a search for that font. And remember, it was called Letters for Learners. Okay, I'll just type in Letters for, and I can see that it popped up. I can close this out. So here's my word right here, and I am going to make sure that my word is on top. Okay, so now I'm going to just move it over here, and I am going to resize the word. I want it to be big enough for my young students to be able to see it and work with the letters. Okay, so remember, these letters are going to represent my puzzle pieces, if you will. Okay, so I'm going to put this back over here, and now I am going to do a search for an image of a dog. And when I'm searching through the images, I am going to be looking for a basic image of a dog that just has a single layer. I want the full body of the dog. I don't want just the head, or I don't want anything that has anything extra. Okay, so I'm going to go to images, and I am going to do a search for a dog. I think the one that I want to use is this one right here. So what I'm going to do is add it to the canvas. Okay, and it is going to come in fairly big, and all I'm going to do is just resize it to a size that is big enough for what I want to use it for. All right, so now I have a purple layer, so I should have 4 things on my canvas. And I do. I have the dog, I have my text, and I have the 2 rectangles that I started with. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now is I am going to select this whole thing, and I am going to click arrange. No, I'm going to click align, and I am going to center this vertically. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, and this is where I need you to kind of stay with me, because I want to demonstrate what I'm going to do next. What I'm going to do is I am going to select the word dog, and I am going to add an offset to this. Okay, so I'm going to click offset, and the size of the offset that I want is 0.080. Okay, I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to hit apply. Not hit apply, I'm going to click apply. All right, so now I can look at my layers panel, and I have my basic text, which is on top, and I have my offset, which is the layer behind the top layer. Okay, I'm going to click on the dog, and I'm also going to add an offset to the dog. So I'm going to go back to offset. It's already set at 0.080, and I am going to click apply. Okay, so now I have my top layer, and what I'm going to do is select my text, my top layer. I'm going to hold the shift key, and I'm going to select the purple dog, and I am going to attach those. Once I attach them, I am going to just move this out of the way. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is select the offset of the word dog. I'm going to hold my shift key, and I'm going to select the offset of the dog, and I am going to weld that. Okay, now that I have it welded, I can see that my weld result represents 1 layer, whereas my attached layer, this layer right here, represents 2 layers. It's the dog plus the text. Okay, so I'm going to move this over here just for a second. What I'm going to do now is select this whole thing, the dog, the word dog, and the template of the basswood, and I am going to slice this. Okay, so I have two slice results, and then I have the layer. What I'm going to do is delete the layers of the slices that I do not need. So I'm going to select this first layer, this layer right here, and I'm going to delete this. I'm going to select the next layer right here, and I'm also going to delete this because I don't need it. Okay. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to just move this over here to the side because these two pieces will go together. So once I have them all cut out, I'm going to glue these two layers together. This bottom piece is the bottom layer of the puzzle. This will represent the actual puzzle template, and this will represent the puzzle pieces. Now, it might be hard to see these as puzzle pieces because they are attached, but remember, once they get cut out, they will be detached. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just kind of change the color of these two. Let's just change them to purple for now, and let me detach them so you can get a visual of what I mean. So if I were to take this dog and let's just move it like to the front, you can see that this will represent a puzzle piece that will fit nicely into the puzzle template. Okay, so let me undo all of that and get it all back together. Okay, undo one more time. All right, I want this to be attached, but I also want to duplicate this because I want to have two. I'm going to glue these two pieces together, and you'll see all of that once I get to that screen. So now I am ready to click Make It. Okay, so I'm going to click Make It. Okay, so this is my first layer of the basswood. This second mat is the second layer or the bottom layer. This represents the sets of puzzle pieces that will be glued together. Now, I do think that it will be better if I just move this down a little bit because I'm going to have to put two of the pieces of basswood on this one mat. So altogether, I will be using 4 pieces of basswood. Okay, I am going to click Continue. And my computer is looking for my Cricut Maker that is connected via Bluetooth, and I am going to select basswood, and I get a notification to remove the not to remove, but to move the star wheels all the way to the right, and to make sure that my material is no wider than 11 inches. Okay, and I'm going to secure all of this to a purple strong grip mat. Everything that I'll do from here will be back on the camera. Okay, I have a purple strong grip mat right here. I am going to remove the plastic, and I have a package of Cricut basswood. I prefer Cricut basswood. You can purchase other basswood from Amazon, but I did not have a good experience with it when I've used other brands of basswood. I am also going to be using my Cricut knife blade. So it's the one that looks like this. And I'm going to put this in the same direction that it is in Cricut Design Space or in that prepare screen. Okay. And I'm just going to get this taped down securely to the mat. Okay. I have my first mat prepared. Now, I am a person who has a lot of mats, so I am going to go ahead and prepare my second mat. So I'm going to speed that part up, but I like to have the next mat ready while I have one mat that's already being cut. So I'm going to speed this part up, but I am going to get this next piece of basswood taped to my mat. The first thing I'm going to do is change out the blade. Right now I have the fine point blade in there. I need to take this out and insert the knife blade. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Remember, for this project, you will need a Cricut Maker series. You can use the original Cricut Maker. You can use the Cricut Maker 3. So I have it inserted. The next thing I'm going to do is move the star wheels, the wheels that look like they're white. I'm going to move them all the way over to the right before I get my mat loaded. Okay, now it might be hard to do it, especially if you haven't ever done it. It's going to feel weird, but just do your best. And the purpose of that is because you don't need the wheels rolling over the wood. Okay, so I have 4 star wheels moved all the way over. Now I'm going to get my first mat and I'm going to insert it here, making sure that they are under these guides right here. I'm going to click the flashing arrow. Okay, and let's see, it says there's a long cut time based on the blade and material type. So now I am ready to click the flashing C, and I will stay close to this and monitor to make sure that nothing is going wrong. I pressed the pause button to kind of just check on this. According to what's on the screen, 8 of 14 passes have already been cut, and I honestly don't think I'm going to need all 14, but I definitely suggest staying close and checking on the cut so it doesn't do too much and it doesn't cut, you know, in places where it's not supposed to. I'm going to press the C to continue the cut. I decided to let it go through all 14 cuts, but before I unload this mat and get the next mat loaded, I have the option to just unload it because I think it looks good, or I can allow it to go through one more cut. One way to check to see if it went all the way through is to use a weeding tool, or you could also use a spatula. So I'm gonna try using my spatula to see if I can lift this. So it does not look like it went all the way through. Definitely, I feel like it's still attached, but let me remove the tape and just double check it. See, I can tell that it's still attached, because if it wasn't, yeah, it's still attached. So I am going to go back over to the computer and I am going to choose the option for cut more, or I can just do it from here by just pressing the flashing C. So let me get the tape placed back on the mat. All right, so I'm going to press the flashing C and let it go through another cut.
Approximately 10 hours later.
So even though I thought 14 passes would not be necessary, I actually went beyond that. I allowed it to cut 3 additional times, and I still have not unloaded it from my mat. I am going to trust that it's cut all the way through because I can see that I'm able to lift it up. So I'm going to remove it. We have our fingers crossed. I can see that it cut a little bit on the tape. I'm going to remove the tape and hope it cut all the way through. So this was my first attempt and not quite right. So the top of the dog's head is cut off, so I need to be more careful about my placement. But I can also look at this and see it did not cut all the way through. So I am going to let this go multiple times, and 14 passes was not enough. So I'm going to go through this process again, and you don't need to see me do that, but I will show you once it's cut out the right way. So word to the wise, make sure your placement is correct, and before you unload it from the mat, do a better job of checking than I did by using your spatula and try to lift up and see underneath. Okay, I'm gonna get my next mat loaded and try to cut this again. I'm going to double check this before I unload it from the mat. I have decided to cut this separately, so I have the word dog and the dog on one mat, and I'll cut it again on a second mat because I couldn't fit 2 pieces of basswood on one mat. But I'm going to double check this before I unload it. So it looks like it's cut. So almost, but I can still see it's attached right here. So I'm going to press the C and let it go through another pass. Okay, I think this is good to go. I am going to remove it from the mat and just check. Yay! I feel good about this. So here's the inside of the D. I'm going to be very careful about this. No, I did not. Oh, okay. There it is. I'll get this all removed and I will get started with cutting the next mat or next piece of basswood, and I'll come back when it's finished. So this is what it looks like. And I am going to just flip this over and get it removed from the mat. I'm going to be careful about it because this wood is very thin. Okay. And I want this is going to be glued to that back piece. So I'm going to remove this tape and I will get my next mat loaded while I'm carefully removing this from the mat. I don't even know if I can explain what happened right here, but I'm just going to use my lint roller and try to clean some of this up. Sending it through again. I have one more mat to cut, and that is the 2 puzzle pieces that are the dog. And I'm going to let this get started cutting while I am carefully trying to remove all of this from the mat. I have both sets of my letters pulled away from the wood. Now I'm going to glue one letter to the top of the other just to add some dimension to it so that it makes up a thicker puzzle piece. I'll speed this part up. I'm going to use the E6000. I think this will work better than the wood glue. I have my puzzle template and I have the pieces. I have the top layer glued to the bottom layers just to give it some dimension. I am going to paint the template as well as the letters and the dog. Morgan is right there. You can't see her on the camera, but she is going to paint the template and I'll be painting the letters and the dog. Okay, you may notice that I have changed clothes because we had to allow time for the paint to dry on the puzzle pieces and on the template. Now we are going to add a coat of Mod Podge on top to make it a little bit shiny. So this is the finished product, and what am I going to say? I love it. I love it. I think the possibilities are endless for a project like this, especially if you are a teacher and you are working with young students. You are helping them to identify letters, how to make words, how to complete a puzzle. You have endless opportunities, and I just think it is so useful. You can make this even cuter. You can add paw prints, you can add polka dots, you can use different colors. You know, I could have kept going with this, but the goal was to demonstrate how to cut basswood with the Cricut Maker. If you have found this tutorial helpful, please consider liking the video, subscribing to my channel, and turning on the bell for notifications because I do upload new content every single week. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thanks for watching.